So then they have the repairing of the old gate, and more wall repairs around the city, and then they repair Watergate. And I'm like, God was trying to warn us.
Yes, Watergate.
We need to read this is why it's important that you read your Bible. Hey guys, we are back with It's Not Complicated, a podcast from Central United Methodist Church. I am Jenny Williams. I'm one of your hosts. I'm the senior pastor of Central, and I'm pretty excited to be walking through the Bible this year with you. Here with me are...
I'm Chase. I'm the executive pastor at Central, and I barely did the reading, so I'm just here to look pretty today.
Oh, thanks for that.
And he does. And I'm Virginia Brown.
Look!
Good gravy. Well, they figured their stuff out. I'm Virginia Brown. I'm the college pastor and director of the Wesley at Central, and today is great and frustrating. Yeah.
Fair.
That's true of a lot of days.
That's true.
So,
many of these.
Yeah. Welcome. And remember, I'd say this is one of our less sensitive weeks. But remember, we're reading through the Bible. So there are some harsh topics. So if you are with people who might need to be, what do I want to say? If you're with people who have sensitive ears, just be mindful.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
So, are you guys ready to dive into Ezra/Nehemiah?
Are we being honest?
I'm with Chase.
It's been a crazy week.
It has been. And this is, it's been a minute since I've really dug into
No
this.
one hardcore references either of these.
Well, here's the deal. There's a very niche theological tradition that loves to lift up Ezra and Nehemiah as like really strong leaders. And I would like to submit after this podcast that they are incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get through it. We'll see what y'all think.
Okay. This will be fun.
But these were interesting readings sometimes, and sometimes I was like, it feels like it's sort of like if there was like a really smart like junior in high school giving their AP history report on events.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like well done or
well, it's well done.
Cliff notes.
It's well done, but remember they're still only a junior in high school, right?
Fair.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't in AP classes, but I had friends who were.
Right. Well, they didn't have AP.
Same.
English.
Right.
Yeah. In my school, they had honors English, which is different.
I did have honors English.
And I did do that.
But that was the extent of my honor.
But I am not sure that I want any of my honors English writing assignments to end up in the canon of Scripture.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
In terms of quality and or content, for that matter. So.
What an interesting thought. Like, I don't know if I want to read any of my writings, like when I was a junior high.
Oh, please don't make me.
Now versus 100 years from now for somebody going, oh, how holy is this?
True. So
Man.
here's the deal. Ezra, Nehemiah, I believe in the Hebrew canon it's one book.
Okay.
So we have broken it into two, but what's always been a little bit interesting to me, well, I said not always, because I just found this out like a year ago, because again, I've not just really dived into this a lot, is that it really is a three-story narrative. We start with Zerubbabel and I think Jeshua
Okay.
leading, and then we move into Ezra coming in and being the priest who kind of helps rebuild the temple, and then finally Nehemiah is a governor who was in exile under the Persian king and served as his cupbearer, but then comes back to help rebuild the city.
Imagine if that's your job.
Yeah. Here is your cup.
Here's your cup, sir.
Yes, I have presented you with cup.
This is my whole job.
Anyway, that actually sounds great.
Yeah, you know what? Can I just be a cupbearer?
I bet you get to go home and not think about cups at all at night. You know what I'm saying?
Or you have like horrible
all the
dreams
different
about
cups.
Like
I almost
nightmares.
dropped the cup today.
Yeah. I forgot lemons. Ice water. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So in Ezra, these are the most important sources that we have, Ezra and Nehemiah, for the post-exilic history of the Israelites. It begins around 539 BC and it takes place all the way through 430 BC. So almost 100 years.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we get started here. In chapter 1 of Ezra, we're retold, which was the last sentence in Chronicles, that the Lord has inspired King Cyrus to rebuild the temple in Judah.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that the Persian emperors that take over after the Babylonians are kind of booted somehow have this sensitivity to the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would be the second time. This would be that it's been rebuilt. Is that right?
Just the first time it's
just
been
the
rebuilt.
first. Okay.
I know it's confusing because we've read about it 4 times.
I know.
But there's just been one temple, that's Solomon's temple, and it was destroyed in the exile, and now they're going to rebuild it.
Gotcha. Just to clarify.
Just everybody's on the same page. At this point, when Cyrus sort of makes this decree, any self-avowed Jew is invited to go with a team and help out.
Okay.
And I love this.
I was wondering who Tima was.
I know, I'm sorry, that's my fault. But,
Who was Tama?
Tama, I was like Timu, like we got the
Team Timu.
That's why they cried. Like the items look so good online, but when they got their Timu items, they were like miniature size.
Hilarious.
No wonder this was such a good deal. But as true to politician form, he decides he's going to fund the rebuilding with by collecting gold from the fellow exiles, like the people who've been ripped from their land,
Yeah.
who have no home,
Yes.
who they've destroyed their temple. He's like, but you all can give your gold, and you can rebuild.
Hopefully, it won't be made into like an idol again.
Oh well. So all the families from the tribe of Judah and Benjamin, they leave and they go back to Jerusalem, and their neighbors gave them like parting gifts as they went home. Like I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
sweet.
Love a good parting gift.
What'd you say?
Love a good parting gift.
Yeah.
Was it a gift or was it food?
It was all of it. It was like food. I think there was some jewelry.
Amazing.
It was stuff for the journey and then stuff for when they got home, I think, if I remember.
That is so
correctly.
nice.
Have y'all ever gotten like a favorite gift whenever you've moved from
Yes.
church? What is it?
Okay, when I left BB,
Okay.
this is insane. I got a really nice like leaf blower that's electric.
That does sound amazing, actually.
It is.
I'm about to ask for one of those for Christmas. This is 40.
Hey, I will send it to you. It's I don't remember the name, but it's like lime green and gray and black. It is so nice.
Is it Ryobi?
No,
Okay.
no. It's a better brand. I will say it's good.
I was thinking about getting a Ryobi, so cool.
Okay. As
Best
I left,
ones.
yeah.
From Levy, and this was before like actually appointed as a pastor, just kind of in that transition. There was from Levy, there was a quilting team. I got a quilt. From Jacksonville, they made the stole that I had that has the United Methodist logo on the bottom, which I couldn't wear until I was ordained, but
that's
I got
right,
to hang
yeah.
on to it.
That's cool.
And from Paragould, I got a robe because I had just been ordained, and so it was a doctoral robe,
Yeah.
preaching robe. And
Nice.
it was absolutely beautiful. All of them were great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've gotten 2 quilts. And then I have gotten, probably my favorite though, are the stoles that you, and one person, this isn't a parting gift, but it was when I got ordained. But he was a retired pastor. He and his wife got me a wedding stole. It's silver.
That's
It's got
pretty.
like
Wow.
gold and like white satin doves on it with 2 gold rings. I mean, it is gorgeous. I would never have purchased it for myself. And now whenever I wear it, people are like, "Oh my
Ooh.
gosh!"
Yes.
Talk about your stole. Anyway.
I did get a stole from the same family that got me the amazing
Leaf blower.
She also orchestrated like a stole that like all of my youth took part in, and so one day I'll get to wear it. But yeah,
Yay, party gifts.
yeah,
Cool. That was a fun little jump. So Cyrus also at the same time returns the sacred artifacts that Nebuchadnezzar had plundered from the temple.
Yeah.
So we've got like 30 gold basins,
Okay.
1,000 silver basins.
Okay.
What
Ooh,
were they doing with all these basins?
Why?
Okay. 400 other silver bowls, which is very different from a basin for reasons.
Maybe one's for drinking and one's for washing feet.
Yes, maybe cereal.
I was okay. And then another 1,000 other vessels.
Wait a sec, no lampstands.
I mean,
Where are the
lampstands?
Where are they?
When was electricity invented? Were they just putting the light bulbs in, or
What's going on?
What were they doing?
was it Thomas Edison? Okay. Chapter 2. There's this huge list of people who've returned from captivity, and they are led by just a rousing bunch.
This is a fun list. So are you ready for an adventure? Here we go. Zerubbabel.
Yeah.
Yeshua.
Okay.
Okay. Nehemiah.
Uh-huh.
Sariah.
Okay.
Raelialahala.
I love that.
Okay.
Mordecai.
Uh-huh.
Bilshan.
Okay, so far.
Mispar.
Okay.
Bichlai.
These are noises.
Yeah, these are he's actually
Raccoon and banana.
banana. Aw, sweet baby banana. There are a couple of other baby list of baby names that I thought I'd lift up to anybody who's just like on the market for a baby name.
Don't look at me. Why did you look at me when say that?
I'm just saying that in general. I was just looking around the room. And one of them is Gabar.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. Chafira.
I like that one.
Ooh.
That one would be great if you're like mad. Fire, get over here.
Chafira Rose. I said,
Spit
get
everywhere. Yes.
Fire, Rose.
And then Laud.
Oh, that's a good solid name.
Isn't that
Solid.
like a Christmas
It's
song?
like lard.
Bring the
Anyway.
Lord.
So the total assembly, and I want you to remember this number, is 42,360, not including servants, because who cares about
These
them?
are very specific numbers, though,
They
compared to like normal ones.
Oh wait, we do care about the servants because there were 7,373 servants and 200 male and female singers.
What a choir.
That would be, they'd give Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir a run for their money is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. We don't know how they sounded. But then they also share a number of horses, camels, and donkeys. I don't need
So
that.
many donkeys. Yeah.
And then they give the temple budget. And I just thought in the season of
Okay.
Of
giving,
budgets, yeah.
I would just share with you, the temple was going to cost roughly 61,000 derricks of gold.
A Derrick.
Daric.
Daric.
D-A-R-I-C.
Awesome.
Daric. 5,000 minas of silver.
Whoa.
And 100 priestly robes.
Gotta have the robes.
Yeah. So we will take your offering in check, cash, QR code, or robe.
Robe.
Anyway. Chapter 3. Okay. They're finally able to sacrifice again. I know.
Oh, I know. It's been so long.
And at first I was like, oh my gosh, more animal sacrifice. But then I was thinking, this must have been a huge relief for them.
Yeah.
Because they are not ritually pure before God without the sacrifices that are performed by the priest. And so it made me think maybe this was what it felt like to be a Methodist in the early days of Methodism with circuit riders.
Yeah.
They could only make it to a church once, twice, maybe quarterly a year, right?
Right.
And so those communities had to wait all that time for any baptisms to receive communion. And it's not that God had abandoned them without those items. It's just that those are fundamental to their worship and to our worship. And so, as same as sacrifice being fundamental to the ancient Israelite worship. And so maybe they were like, thank God, literally. So,
Yeah.
Yes, literally.
So Zerubbabel and Jeshua offer sacrifice. I just like to pronounce Jeshua because it's the same name as Joshua.
Yes.
It's the same name as Yeshua.
Yeah.
All the same name that becomes Jesus in the Greek.
Yeah.
It means God saves.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zerubbabel, Jeshua offer the sacrifice. Then they celebrate the festival of booths because this all happened in the fall. So that would be like harvest and preparing for all of that. They begin buying and acquiring temple materials so they can actually start the work. And so the Levites are put in charge of overseeing the rebuilding of the temple, which
I feel like, of course.
of course, but also, have you ever done capital campaign where you're doing a huge addition on a church and the pastor leads the ideas.
Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's like
We need some construction people, not just
Right.
And there's no
guides.
closets in the building.
right.
And the bathrooms are, across campus
Yeah.
from the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And it's like, we needed a logistical person.
Yeah. Leave it to the professionals.
There's a lot of churches that I've been in where I've gone.
Yeah. Or like if they've done stages, like this one
Yes.
was built in the 80s and this one was built in the 90s and this one was
Why aren't there more plugins?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Why did nobody put a plug-in in this? Yes, exactly.
Yes.
No, you're exactly right. So I think probably 100% the Levites should have been used for resource,
Yes.
but perhaps bring in some of the,
Yeah.
the
Other opinions.
craftsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Be interested to see like how they kept the different heritage groups together. I know we had the list of names at the beginning who they came back with, but while they were in exile, like there was some intermingling with other cultures. There was also some practices that they adapted. We'll get to that when we get to Isaiah. But now they're back, and now that we have our different groups again.
Mm-hmm.
Although the priestly people would have had that, I guess the oral tradition of, remember, this was the order that we had to have things in to make sure that everything was legit for worship.
Oh, yeah.
You think there's like cliques of people?
There wasn't in exile, but here there's
Yeah.
I bet there was, though. I bet they really dialed down on that like familial connection because that was the only connection they had left.
Yeah.
They didn't have connection to the land. They didn't have connection to the temple. All they had was their family name and that heritage. I bet the majority of them like did a lot of telling and retelling of those stories so they wouldn't forget.
Probably.
They have a nice little groundbreaking ceremony for the beginning.
Love a good ribbon cutting.
I mean, absolutely. Do you think they wore like the cute
They had a
hats?
golden shovel.
That's the shovel. It's a shovel for the big
Well,
camera.
They could have made
That's
one.
true. The ribbon cutting won't happen till it's finished. But
That's
the
right.
They got to do the shovel and the hard hats.
Yes.
Situation. And so it's this huge thing. The priests are all dressed up. They're playing cymbals as the workmen are trying to lay the foundation. And I thought, would that have been a little obnoxious?
Yeah, come on.
Anyway.
It's not a pleasant noise.
No. But I don't know if they plotted it smaller than the previous temple or what, but as many people as were cheering and shouting and celebrating that it was starting, there was this huge contingency of people who were just weeping because they had seen the previous Solomon's temple and they were mourning the fact that it was gone,
Yeah.
and they were
Really?
not
Come on, guys.
impressed with whatever was happening.
Okay, I
Oh.
hope I remember. We're gonna put a pin on this
There's always someone
for
to
later.
complain.
I'm interested about this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put a pin in it. So then we're on to chapter 4. This is day 107. So some of the Assyrians who had settled in Judah, because remember when the exiles were pulled out, the Assyrians popped some people in there.
Yeah.
To kind of colonize it. They were like, we would love to help you build the temple. Ever since we moved here, we've been worshiping your God, and we feel like we want to help. And Zerubbabel is like, no.
I mean, more hands make like
The
work.
more the merrier.
And I mean,
I don't
they
know.
don't like this, what he says to them.
No, they don't. What does he say to them?
He just says, absolutely not. You can't. The offer has been rejected. Is there any other specific words?
You shall have no part with us in building the house for our God, but we alone will build for the Lord, because that's what the Lord needs, is for them to build it.
That's right.
But
And then these guys.
which essentially, as the king of Cyrus of Persia has commanded us, so it's like the Persian king commanded you. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you have people there?
Yeah, why wouldn't you have them? It's very bizarre to me. I mean, we'll know. We'll kind of see into why later.
Yeah.
The sentiments, the interracial and intertribal sentiments are not great with this post-exilic group. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, do you mean to say that they were denied?
Yeah,
And
go for it.
they're offended, and so they launched this whole smear campaign.
Yes.
They write strongly worded letters.
I love a good strongly worded
Yeah,
letter.
to the Persian kings, like, hey, you gotta stop this. These people are the worst, or something like that, basically.
Pretty much word for word.
Yeah, and this political interference, it leads to a complete, I'm gonna butcher this word, is it cessation? What is this word?
Cessation.
Cessation.
Okay.
Cessation of the temple's reconstruction for several years.
Yeah.
So they just cease.
Yep.
That's the word.
Now, if you've been reading along and you're like, whoa, 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 what happened? Because we've been talking about King Cyrus, and all of a sudden we've got Artaxerxes in here. So whoever combined and edited the final edits on Ezra Nehemiah, they perhaps on purpose or perhaps accidentally made some like editing faux pas. So if it was on purpose, it means there's a theological reason they did it, but it's still not historically linear, I would say.
Yeah.
So in this section, we have the people of the land angry, and they do write to the king, but intercalated in here is this section which is like a glimpse of what happens with Nehemiah, where he's trying to rebuild the wall and fortify the city, and the people of the land are like, no, we don't want you guys to rebuild this city. We want it to stay open to and accessible, I should say. And so they write to Artaxerxes, who is the Persian king after Cyrus. So anyway, there's just this little interlude.
That is a name.
Yes, Artaxerxes or Artaxerxes, I've heard.
It sounds like a tax receipt.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Which is always important so that you don't.
That is true.
So if the IRS audits you, you have it. Anyway, okay. So in the little intercalation, we have Artaxerxes issuing a cease and desist on Jerusalem. But now we pick up on chapter 424, where 4 left off. And now we do see that the rebuilding of the temple has halted that's during Cyrus, until Darius assumes power. So if my understanding of the line of the historical linear model is, what am I even saying? If I have this straight, it's Cyrus, Darius, and then Artaxerxes. That's the succession of the Persian kings.
Okay.
Chapter 5. Prophets Haggai and Zechariah are on the scene.
We always said Haggai.
I know.
Isn't that
Haggai.
dumb?
Why? Maybe it is.
I don't know.
Haggai. Haggai. I said Haggai too, I think.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, right.
But they jump on the scene, and so like every time a prophet from the book of the prophets shows up in a story, I feel like it's those cameos on sitcoms where the really, really famous person comes in and does like a short little clip, and the whole the live audience like cheers. And they have to like pause and wait and say their line until the applause dies down.
Right.
So that's what I envision happening. So this is when Haggai or Zechariah, this is their contemporaries. And now the temple building is back on.
Okay.
Unpause. Play.
That's right.
Oh, okay. I was like, do we need to stop? Yeah. That's what it felt like. Yeah. It's like back in Saved by the Bell. You're like, pause.
Oh yeah, and everyone freezes.
And then Zach's like, I got a story to tell
or
you.
unfreeze or whatever.
I love when the fourth wall is broken. Let me tell you.
So good.
The more the merrier. I love it.
So there's a governor from the province beyond the river. Do you
Sounds like a great HOA.
Homeowners
Association?
Isn't that what it's called? Like a community when you live in an HOA, right?
No, you have an HOA when you live in a neighborhood.
Well, you can. I've never.
So the
lived
name
in
of the name of a neighborhood, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a great name.
Province beyond the river, and I loved it that they like capitalized province beyond and river in my translation.
They did. Yes. It was like a fancy subdivision.
It is. So there's this governor from there, and he comes to the elders of Jerusalem, and he's like, who gave you permission to do this, build the temple? And they're like, look, we have permission. So the governor from the PBR did not stop them, but he does send another strongly worded letter to Darius to ask, did you give them permission
He's the
to do
HOA
this?
chair.
That's exactly
Yes.
which that can go either way.
There's
honestly.
so many HOAs here in the Bible. This isn't the first instance.
There are. So Darius is like, well, who did give you permission? And so I wanted to know, like, do the Persian emperors not talk succession plan before they like keel over and hand it down, or what happens? Like, how did Darius not know that Cyrus had made this decree? That's my question. Anyway, and so they write back to Cyrus, and they, here's what I heard Cyrus asking: who gave you permission? And Darius. Darius says, who gave you permission? And the answer is Cyrus. Mm-hmm. But it's like whenever you ask that one relative that you don't see very often a question and they go too far back.
Yeah.
And they tell them too much information. It was a one-word answer, and they're like, well, see, one time
Let me just
we
start
used
back.
to have judges that judged us according to the law. And so they write this long letter about their whole history. So Darius receives this letter and he's like, it's 18 pages front and back.
He reads the introductory, goes, okay, skip.
I just need the
Get to
synopsis.
point. Get to the
Come on.
point.
Just are there cliff notes?
Yes.
And so he says, listen, never mind. I found the file in the filing cabinet from Cyrus' decree, and I will permit the work to happen. Go back to your province beyond the river, Tatanai, which is the governor. Tatanai?
Tatai.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like, the other name.
What was the other name?
Setarabozina.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, that was
Setarabozina.
Oh, I
Call
see
him,
it.
call him Seth for short. Sorry.
Tat and Seth. Anyway, so Darius also tells these governors to go ahead and aid with supplies. Since you asked, go ahead and aid with the supplies. The people of Israel celebrate the dedication of the house of God with joy. They make sacrifices. At the end of chapter 6, they celebrate Passover. Everybody is so happy. All things are good.
The end.
So,
Yeah.
chapter 7 of the book of Ezra, we finally get the priest/scribe Ezra on the scene. The man, the myth, the legend.
Sorry.
So,
I apologize.
Ezra, for some reason, has the favor of the king. And he is like, now that we're doing this whole temple thing, I want to give the people a good Torah overview. It's sort of like a...
You know what I mean?
Remember the law? Here's the law again.
Oh, Lord, we're going to do it. Yes, Lord. And so he sends, Artaxerxes is now on the scene. And he is warm towards Israel's God. So he sends Ezra to Jerusalem with a letter giving permission for more people from Babylon to return to Jerusalem. And he sends with him all these goods and some money. And he told all the governors in the area that they are not to tax the Levites or any temple servants, so that they can just get this job done and not like waste their money on other things. And so Artaxerxes puts Ezra in charge of appointing judges and magistrates around the area so that they can enforce both the law of God and the law of Persia, because he's not an idiot, right?
Right.
And then chapter 7 ends by switching to first person from Ezra's perspective. So there's pieces in both Ezra and Nehemiah where we get these like memoir moments.
Yeah.
And they're writing from first person, and it's really interesting. But that only lasts for like 3 verses, and then
Of course.
chapter 8 switches back to a list of the families who returned with Ezra. Does anybody want to read that list?
A list of names of the family who returned.
I'm kidding, don't read the list.
Yeah, I was like, oh, jeez.
So he has all these people with him, and he gathers them by the river. And once he gets them all together, he kind of takes count, and he's like, oh, crap, we don't have any Levites. I mean, they're going back to rebuild the temple, and they
Right.
didn't bring any Levites with
I
them.
feel like that's kind of
How did
important.
this happen?
I mean,
So he sends a message to Cassiphia, obviously,
of course.
to see if they can send some priests to help serve the temple. And at the riverside, he also proclaimed a fast for all the people because they wanted to ask God for a safe journey to Jerusalem, because it says he was too ashamed to ask the king for soldiers.
Man, I feel like you could do both.
Okay, come on.
Well, I'd already
because
bragged
he
about
forgot
God.
to ask.
Well, no, he said I'd already bragged about how good and cool and powerful God was, and so I didn't want to be like, but also could we just have some soldiers
Fair.
too? And it's like, y'all, both is good. Prayer and
Yes. Resources.
and resources.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. Anyway, luckily, they do make it back safely to Jerusalem, and so he sends the Levites on with gifts of silver and gold to go to the temple, and they all arrive in Jerusalem together. Chapter 9. Something terrible has happened, you guys.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it does.
Ezra finds out.
Gosh, so dramatic.
You guys, I don't even want to say this out loud. It's so appalling.
We did the disclosure at the beginning. It's fine.
Yeah. People have intermarried. I know. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I'm so sorry to be the one that has to say this out loud. No, he gets so mad because people have married within other tribes and surrounding communities because they didn't have anybody else.
Yeah.
Because they were in exile.
Exactly.
And he's
His response is too much.
It's out of
It is
control.
too much. It says that he tears his clothes.
Yes.
He's like, ah! And he pulls out his hair.
Why?
We already talked about how they feel about bald people earlier. Like, come on.
Just get it together, dude.
Just.
And he prays to God, and he's like, "What do I do? Because these people have done this horrible abomination of a thing." And he quotes this section from Deuteronomy about how God had said that they had filled it from into the Moabites and the Ammonites and some of the other surrounding tribes had filled the land with from end to end with their uncleanness.
How dare they?
And so Ezra interprets this as like an eternal prohibition on intermarriage forever and ever. Now, I will say the law does in some cases or in some places prohibit intermarriage, but like all of the areas of the law that were very specific and frankly harsh, they have been interpreted and reinterpreted already.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't the hard stand to take, in my opinion. Whatever. Chapter 10. We're going to come back to this conversation.
Yeah, because yikes.
So Ezra has some sort of a advisor named Shechaniah. And Shechaniah is like, look, with all of this, like the terrible things that these people have done, intermarrying with one another, like hooligans, there's really only one solution. And the solution is, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
To divorce all of the foreign wives
Okay.
and to banish them and any children that came from those intermarried unions. Bye.
Go back.
And so Ezra makes all the priests that he has put in charge swear that they will follow through on this extreme plan. And so they gather all of the exiles in an assembly. They send out a note that's like, in 3 days or less, you have to be at this assembly or else you lose your land. So everybody comes and gathers together, and Ezra announces the plan. And he tells all the men of Israel to confess their sins and abandon their wives and children. And it says that people were trembling with fear, and because it was raining. It was pouring down rain while this is like a movie scene.
Yes. Of course, pour down rain probably didn't happen all that often.
No, yeah. But also just like, imagine hearing that your family's gonna be ripped apart and it's your
And it's raining.
And so they did. And they were like, it's okay to divorce your wife because the law says that you can divorce your wife if she's unclean, and these are foreign people, so they're unclean. So it's okay. This is actually the right thing to do.
This is awful.
Horrible story.
It's horrible. 113 families are identified and torn apart. The excommunication.
It makes you want to think, like, if somebody was like, just,
Yeah. Like, can you soften your accent a little bit? I don't know. It took them 3 months to get this completely finished, and then all the foreign wives or children are gone. Imagine like the generational devastation
That's like a death sentence.
Yeah.
It really is.
Awful.
It is.
Ezra, boo.
And so I think the book of Ezra closes with Ezra being proud that he's purified the people, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And it just reminds me that it's so important not just to follow the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. And over in the beginning of the story of Israel, God is telling the people that they are to be a light to the nations, that he tells Abraham, you are going to bless other people. People will be blessed because of you, and this does not feel like any sort of divine blessing. So, well,
that's over.
Yeah, that is over. And so, again, remember when I said at the beginning that people lift these people up as strong leaders, strong and righteous leaders.
Pass.
Maybe Nehemiah would do better.
Yeah, let's see what Nehemiah
Come on, Nehemiah.
Okay, so again, large parts of Nehemiah read like a memoir. So you get a lot of first person, a lot of I did this. It has a moment where in a little bit where Nehemiah talks about how generous and wonderful he is. It's very Moses in that way.
Yeah. I'm so humble.
Yes, exactly. So Nehemiah was a Jew. We mentioned this earlier. He was the cupbearer of the king of Persia, which means he has worked his way up. Like this is a really high place in the court.
And they would trust him,
For him to
obviously.
hold.
Oh, because he could like poison them
And
easily.
that's what the cupbearers, their
Yeah.
sole job was essentially to make sure the king didn't get poisoned,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he has a heart for his people, and he's heard horrible things about how the walls and just the city of Jerusalem is kind of in tatters and shambles. And so he goes to the king and he says, well, first of all, he prays to God and asks for forgiveness for not always keeping God's commands, which would be hard to do in a foreign land
Right.
away from all of your religious
Sure.
contemporaries. But then he goes back to the king in chapter 2, and the king is like, "You look so sad, and I
What's
know,
wrong?
I know you're not
So
sick.
sad.
So please tell me what's going on." And Nehemiah's like, "Look, this is a bold request, but I would like to be sent to Judah to help rebuild the city of my ancestors." And the king is like, "Well, how long will you be gone, and when will you return?" And Nehemiah doesn't really answer this question because I think deep down he knows like, never.
Never, yeah.
But he's like, "Look, just let me go."
When it's done.
Right, exactly. There you go. So the king is agreeable with this non-timeline, and so he grants him permission. But when the governors in the province beyond the river, PBR,
Yeah.
find out that the king has sent someone from Persia to come back and check on the people of Israel, they don't like it. I think. Do you
Fair.
think they felt threatened or something?
Well, it's kind of like, well,
Because
yeah.
I believe these were governors who had been appointed by the empire to
Right.
kind of oversee the area,
Yeah.
the
Right.
region. I don't
I
know.
wonder if there's like some discontent with like the Levites who are supposed to be in charge of making sure that it's done right, but he hears about it. It's like, well, it's not being done right.
Right. Well, Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem and he stays for 3 days. And on the third day, in the middle of the night, he sneaks out and he checks on the walls of the city.
I love this.
You know, I just gotta make sure they're still there. Gotta check on the walls.
Well, they're bad. They're
Oh,
It's
bad.
like sneaking around with like your measuring tape, just going, "Shh, what are you doing? Shh,
Or like,
nothing."
you can't go back to sleep, so that's what you do.
This is relatable to me.
You know what? Okay.
I'm just gonna go ahead and get him and write that email.
Yes.
And so when he gets back, he is inspired to rebuild the wall, and so he assembles a team of leaders to help him.
Okay.
And the local governors come out and they literally are like taunting him and making fun of him during all this.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, do you ever get the feeling that ancient Israel, like, or the ancient battlefields were more or less like the hallways of middle school?
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm like, this person is minding their own business, doing their own thing, and somebody's like, I'm gonna make fun of you.
You can't do it.
So anyway, Nehemiah tells them that, look, listen, God will make this happen, and you have no claim over the city. And so they go away. Chapter 3. This is the reconstruction. These notes
Finally.
are hilarious. The high priest goes and rebuilds the sheep gate, which was probably the northeast.
We've been
gate.
there.
Mhm,
Yeah.
we have. And is this the gate that they would, where they would come through to buy sheep for sacrifice?
Was that near where the pools were?
Mhm.
Yes, I think so.
Bethsaida, right?
Yeah.
Was that the pool?
Yes, I think so. Because they would come in with the sheep to be sacrificed.
I think that's right.
and
yeah.
it was there with the water and
Yeah.
all that jazz.
So they consecrate that, then they continue building the wall. They fix some spots between the Tower of 100 and the Tower of Hananel, obviously. Then the sons of the sons of Hasanaah
Hasanaah. Yeah.
built the fish gate.
So confused about this one. So
I don't
like,
know that we went to the fish gate, or they didn't tell us.
It's not. It's on the north end, and I don't think it's there anymore.
Oh,
And
okay.
what was interesting is that I was like, wait a second. because they would bring in fish from either the Mediterranean Sea or the Sea of Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
And which was interesting is like the travel between the
That's a lot.
harvest
Yeah.
of the fish to get it to the market. I was
Yikes.
like,
Because there's no like body of water.
They probably
right
salted
there.
it.
that's what I was saying.
Oh, okay.
That's what I earlier to
Or they
ask.
had
threw it on
dried
ice.
or something. They threw it on. They put it in their, their Yeti
They're
coolers.
Yetis.
It was also the Ark of the Covenant as well. It's oh my god.
Oh my gosh, so true. Yeah. So then they have the repairing of the old gate and more wall repairs around the city, and then they repair Watergate. And I'm like, God was trying to warn us.
Oh, yes, Watergate.
We need to read this is why it's important that you read your Bible. Anyway,
Nixon.
next we've
Kidding.
got Horsegate, obviously. And then we've got Eastgate, not Eatgate.
Okay, I was like, okay.
Although this is where you go if you want to have a great meal. You know?
Right.
It's like
They have that $10 lunch with the burger and
it's
the
like
Coke.
the mall cafeteria.
And then finally, the wall is fixed all the way around. Yeah, that was I was stressed.
All the gates are up.
Yeah. In chapter 4, Sanballat, who will become a key figure for the rest of the story, Sanballat is one of these governors that we've been talking about.
What an awful name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good.
No.
He's really mad that they were able to complete
Yeah.
the job.
Yeah.
So he does another smear campaign. And he gets a group together to go out against the Jews. And then he plots to go and give them a hard time. But he actually never does it. Like, he
Yeah.
never ends up actually going. Like, he's all talk.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, most definitely the bully that's like, oh, they did what we were taunting them about. Well, let's go. And everybody's like, no, we're done.
yeah, we're tired.
We're
yeah.
good.
Yeah. And so God frustrates the plan, their plan, whatever it was that never came to fruition. And the builders continue on, and they work day and night, and the wall is finished. Okay, again, this editing is very clunky.
Yeah.
Because we
Yes.
finished the wall in chapter 3,
Uh-huh.
but now, again, we are finishing the wall in chapter 4. Maybe it was one of those things where, like, you thought you had finished it, but then you were like, I didn't like the way that came together.
Just had to do a few more things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went with the seagrass green, and we really wish we had done, something different.
No idea what's going on.
Okay. Anyway, Nehemiah, in chapter 5, we are presented with a food shortage.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of famine situation. The people of the land, and that reference is to anybody who was living in the land
Yeah.
of Judah that during the exile.
Yeah.
Mostly foreign folks.
Yeah.
Or, remember our friends Aram, Ammon, all those local places that were not, they were not Israelites, but they were cousins basically to Israelites. All of those people are still living there, and they are starving. And what's happening is that they are selling off their own land or putting up liens against it, or they are selling themselves and or their children into slavery just to get enough food to survive.
Jeez.
It's very reminiscent of the Joseph Egypt story. Remember where they ended up, like, people were remortgaging their land like
That's
3-4
right.
times.
Yeah.
And it was basically just making it hard for them to continue on. Like, there was no long-term sustainability.
Somebody's benefiting because somebody has food.
Yeah.
And somebody's making money.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's the nobles who are living in Jerusalem.
And
course.
Nehemiah is very much like me throughout this whole thing. He's
for
very like,
sure.
I was having this
I
conversation.
did this and I did this.
I was having
Sorry.
this conversation with Adam earlier about kind of like where would the famine be, and just thinking of just imagining like when we were in Jericho. We're kind of on the east side of the mountain range where Jerusalem was. And you could literally sit there and you could see clouds coming in from the Mediterranean, and they would build up, like it looked like a rain cloud was headed your way. And as soon as they hit that mountain range, you could actually see the clouds move north or south, and it misses you altogether. And so I'm wondering if it's like those who had settled in on that side, like they're watching the rain come in, the nobility is like prospering on where it's land of milk and honey on the other side. So I'm wondering, I'm just kind of curious, who was the oppressed in this situation?
Yeah.
Of your own people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. It's kind of like when Abram and Lot went up, and Lot was like, well, that side's really green, I'll go there. And the other side was kind of like desolate, and Abram's like, I'll take that.
Yeah. I just remember everything being very sandy or just brown. There's like no
in the
fertile
Jericho
land.
area, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Nehemiah calls out the Jewish moneylenders because they've been taking all this interest from all the people, and it's oppressing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the nobles, he's like, you have to give back what you've taken. So the people get their land back, they get their freedom back, and they all the leaders that have sort of taken advantage swear an oath that they'll do what they say they'll do, and everything kind of gets set back into how it should be. And Nehemiah is really proud of himself for doing this.
Yes.
And he kind of gives us a little overview about how he was a benevolent governor. He did not take any excess supplies from the king or from any of the people. He supported the well-being of everyone. Just ask him.
Yeah, mine says the generosity of Nehemiah, and it's very clear that he is writing this about himself.
It's definitely in first person.
Yes.
Yeah. Chapter 6, the surrounding communities schedule a meeting, and they want Nehemiah to come and meet with them.
Mm.
But he's like, I know they just want to do me harm.
That's right.
So I'm not going.
Right.
So but this is great. He says in response, I am doing a great work and cannot come down.
You know what? I'm so busy.
This is my new excuse when I don't want to do something. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down.
I cannot come down.
So 4 times the enemies, invite him to this meeting, and 4 times he says the same thing. Finally, Sanballat, remember Sanballat?
Yes.
He sends a messenger and he's like, dude, I know you're fortifying this wall so that you can rebel against us and you can make life hard on us and you can do all these things. And he's like, even your prophets are going around saying, there's a king in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I just assume that's how the prophets
Yeah.
That is, yes.
And Nehemiah is like, look, nothing like that is happening. And you are making up all of these scenarios in your mind.
Yeah.
And I would just like to say I have been there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on. These are like quick little snapshots of random things that Nehemiah really wanted us to know. Yeah, so Nehemiah's like, there's a guy named Shemaiah, and he's trying to get Nehemiah to go into the temple, which would have been bad or illegal because Nehemiah is a layperson.
Right.
And he's like, let's go in and shut the door so that we'll be safe. And Nehemiah's like, I don't think so.
Not a good idea.
I don't want to die today.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my comment in my study Bible said, Shemaiah probably did this to try to discredit Nehemiah's leadership by making him do something illegal publicly.
Oh.
It doesn't work though, because Nehemiah says no, and it turns out that Shemaiah had been hired by Sanballat in the game.
What?
Good Lord!
Come on, Sanballat did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Just smite him.
That's
Really? No?
So the wall is finally completed, and it takes about 52 days.
Yep.
And after it's complete, every enemy in the surrounding area was afraid because they understood that the exiles had had God's help with all of this. So Tobiah, the governor of Ammon, we think, he continues to just send threats to Nehemiah. Like they're just it's on.
What kind of? Hey, you better get that wall finished, or
no? He's like, don't get it finished.
or don't get it finished. And I don't know. It's like childish.
It's
almost,
very childish.
Probably.
He's like, I'm gonna come in there and poke a hole in that wall. I don't know.
I'm gonna steal your fruit.
So steal your fruit. What? I heard that city fruit's real good. Well, give me some
Well,
of
they
that.
would because there was a famine.
Well, true.
Hey,
Fair.
he had stores up. Okay, he was. Never mind. I'm done.
Nehemiah is like, I know what I'm. You know what's really good for like rebuilding and reconnecting? Nepotism.
Yes,
So he puts his brother in charge of Jerusalem,
of course.
Hanani, and then together with Hananiah.
Oh, that's
This is not
close.
confusing.
Okay.
No.
He's the commander of the citadel, and they're supposed to rule together. And Nehemiah gives them these instructions: do not open the gates until, quote, the sun is hot. And they start putting guards all over the city because of all these threats. They can't take any chances.
Yeah.
And it says another list of the returned exiles of 42,360. Remember I told you to remember that number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the exact same number. This list is like copy and pasted from Ezra 2.
Interesting.
There's a few very minor differences, but the reality is that probably the same families were represented by both. But
Yeah.
Anyway, again, the editing is like not amazing. In chapter 8, this is another situation where, remember earlier in Ezra when we had like a weird Nehemiah?
Yeah.
We just
Accidental-
need the law again.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we have Ezra like popping up in Nehemiah. And the reason this is sort of ridiculous is because when Ezra, this is 80 years after Ezra came onto the scene.
Okay.
So we had in the previous Chronicle, the Second Chronicles story, we had a 130-year-old man. But the likelihood of Ezra living long enough to come back and read the entirety of the law to all the people is not high.
Right.
That's just not high in likelihood. So, but if the editor wanted this in here for a theological reason, it would be to remind us again that after the rebuilding of both the temple and the rebuilding of the wall in the city have been sanctioned, ordained, and now consecrated by God. So we have this random interlude with Ezra retelling the law, and I was listening to a podcast about this, and they were like, how long would this have taken? Imagine, I mean, we talked about this before,
In the
but
beginning.
yeah, like the 5 books of the Bible, like
It says a sort of ancient group Bible study.
Let's take
Let's just all just sit
I
around
think so.
and hear
5
all of
weeks
it.
and a podcast, maybe.
Highs and lows, what?
5
Yeah.
weeks and a podcast or 2.
Exactly. So they all sat there for a real long time. Then after they're done with the law, they celebrated the Festival of Booths again. Remember
Again.
that?
Again, yeah.
Yep. So, chapter 9. Now it's time for a national confession. This is still the Ezra interlude.
Okay.
The people put on sackcloth. They fast. They put dust on their heads. And then the Israelites separated themselves from all the foreigners to confess their sin. You cannot confess your sin with foreigners in sight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Still sad story.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Then there's this really long prayer by Ezra, and it's the retelling of the entire Israelite story. And it's in kind of like beautiful narrative form, but it's long. And it made me
Yeah.
wonder, like, you know, when we do baptisms and we kind of do that retelling of the people
Yes,
coming through the water,
yes.
do you think the congregation's ever like, oh my gosh, this story?
Here we go again.
Again, we get it. Water.
Yeah. And so at the end of chapter 9, they ratify a new covenant with God via the Levites,
Yeah.
and they sign it.
Yeah.
Chapter 10. Then it tells us the terms of the covenant, which is sort of like it rehashes some of the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, and it has a little bit of a tightening on the Sabbath. You can't even buy from foreign folks on the Sabbath. You can't buy any goods that you might need. And then we pop back into chapter 11.
Whew.
Yeah.
Day 112. And so we got rid of all of her families.
Yeah.
So now we have to repopulate.
Now we don't
the
have any
area.
people.
Oh, you
Yeah.
don't? Huh.
That's too
But
bad.
where are we all going to live?
Mm-hmm.
And I love this part. It's like they cast lots for rehoming. And it's like, let's see what subdivision you get.
It's like a lottery system.
Yep. So they take all those surrounding suburbs, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and a tenth of the people who are living there by lottery
Mm-hmm.
are rehomed into Jerusalem to repopulate the city.
All right.
And that's basically it for chapter 11.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
give kind of an assessment of the territories, and so you can definitely dive deeper into that if you want to. If city zoning is kind of your deal.
Yeah.
Chapter 12 lists the priests and the Levites. Again,
Is this where the ribbon cutting finally happens?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So they dedicate the city wall. That somebody, who do you think brought the big giant scissors?
Oh.
Jesus.
Gee.
You guys, and the ribbon cutting, they have like the big
It was
scissors.
The mayor.
Yeah, the mayor.
Oh, the mayor.
The mayor.
Okay.
Right?
And then they, of course, need a jam session.
Yeah.
We need a choir.
Party.
Yeah.
We need a band.
Yeah. Did somebody say song break? So they are worshiping, they're giving thanks.
Look to the western sky. Go see Wicked.
Okay.
Song break.
I
Yes.
So the Levites are given their temple assignments. That's that. Chapter 13. This closes out the story of Ezra and Nehemiah. And I would just like to entitle this chapter, Oops, I Did It Again.
Yes.
Oops, I did it again.
Come on.
And
I
again.
played with your heart. I got lost in the game. Oh, baby, baby. So when the people... Not innocent at all. So when the people hear in the law, the reading of the law, that the Moabites and the Ammonites are forbidden from their assembly, which means from being a part of their group, because the kings that they had back in the day, like 1,000,000 years ago, had hired Balaam. Remember that
Yeah.
story? To proclaim curses against Israel. The donkey thwarts these curses via God. Or I should say God does via the donkey. But they are like, well, this is terrible. We've brought all these foreigners into our space, and now we are just as corrupt as they were back then. And so Nehemiah, in the meantime, again, the editing here is hilarious. Nehemiah's like, I got to go back to the king real quick. While he's gone,
Just real fast.
while he's gone, Tobiah,
Yeah.
one of the governors from the surrounding area, jumps in and kind of like helps himself to some power. He ceases all of the temple stuff that we've just kind of put back into place. And so when Nehemiah comes back, he was so mad that he threw Tobiah and all his ugly secondhand IKEA furniture out of that place.
Get out.
Just kidding. I love IKEA furniture.
I do too.
I love secondhand furniture, so
wait,
I'm always up for.
I love putting
donation.
stuff together. I'm real weird.
Same. It's
Oh,
very cathartic.
nice,
Yeah.
yes.
Anyway, so he throws them all out, and he has to cleanse the chambers, and he gives the Levites back their portion, which had been withheld, and he paid the musicians.
It's
You have
very
to pay
important.
your musicians.
That's
Very
right.
important.
You have
That's
to
right.
pay your musicians. You cannot lose them.
No, and you do not pay musicians in experience. That's not how that works. If they have a
No.
degree and they're ready to go.
There's a soapbox here. He's standing on it.
Thank you, Chase. Thank
Yes.
you for sharing this with us. The people have missed the whole Sabbath section in the reading of the law. They probably fell asleep. It was very long.
Yes.
So Nehemiah has to remind them, like, you actually do have to follow the Sabbath. You can't be in your wine presses. And it's like, look, everybody wants wine for Sunday afternoon dinner, but you can't do that. You got to prep that on Saturday.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry. You have to prep that on
Friday.
Right.
for the
Right.
Saturday afternoon supper. Anyway, now again, back to the intermarriage situation.
I mean,
This is a little bit different than the other one.
It is.
But
Is it
Nehemiah
like, is it
responds
better
very
or is it
similarly.
worse?
I don't know. I ripped my own clothes, I pulled my own hair, or
Nehemiah just beats them.
Yeah.
The men who have intermarried with foreign wives, he brings them out, he beats them, he pulls out their...
Did you not hear what I said? Like every word.
but also, like, come on, Nehemiah. Just let the. I don't know.
It's so strange. Now, instead of banishing wives and children, he just makes them all promise never to intermarry again.
Okay.
So,
I feel like there's a little bit of grace offered.
I think so. Is that growth? Like, he did kick their butts.
yeah.
But then, I mean, maybe it's one of those things like he got all his frustration out, and then it was like, okay, I don't know.
Still, yes.
Either way,
A little bit more
Ezra and
grace there.
Nehemiah, meh.
Meh.
Yeah.
And so that's it. We've concluded their story. And we'll go into Esther, I believe.
Yeah,
next
Job.
week.
We need a
Super.
little bit of Esther in our lives.
We need Esther.
We do.
So here's the deal. I love the zeal of Ezra and Nehemiah.
Yeah.
I love their dedication to rebuilding the temple and the city. I think they got hung up in the nostalgia,
Yeah.
in the whole like golden era of things. And I think their story is helpful for us now to remind us that things in life, in faith, in practice are going to change.
Yeah.
Right.
Because this was a very traumatic event to be exiled and then to come back in and have to rebuild everything. Like, that is a lot. It will change you as people. It will change your culture, and it did not mean that they were no longer God's people.
Yeah.
But they had built whole lives for 100 years had passed. And, you know, that means that you can't just make everything go back to how it was. Like, we can't go back to
Right.
bulletin boards in all the hallways and felt
Right.
boards in every classroom,
Right,
and
right.
that's how we do church forever and ever.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
And we're going to pull our own hair or somebody else's if they don't want to go back. And so I think that's the lesson from these two, is that they perhaps their intentions were pure and
Yeah.
good and
Yeah.
right, and then they went too far.
They did. Yeah.
So I don't think we wipe away their story completely, but I do think we have an opportunity.
We
to
can learn from them, like, what not to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is a lot of the Bible. Let's
It
be
is.
really
It
honest.
is. Yeah.
Both old and new, it's a lot like, here's what not to do,
Yeah.
which is okay. We need that as much as we need
Yeah.
Absolutely.
what to do.
Know
So
your history so you don't repeat it.
that's right. And if you want what you get, then you might get it, and you hope you want to want it.
That's not how it goes.
Or whatever Chase says.
Let's see. You're gonna get what you want. Let's see if you want what you get.
There it is.
You have to do it with the accent, apparently, and that's
Evidently.
very important.
So,
Yes.
I love it.
any other takeaways from this story?
I miss the lampstands.
Yeah.
I really do too.
There were
I know that goes
not
against
enough
everything
lamps.
you just said, but I really miss the lampstands.
Oh, look! Look.
We have our favorite
we
things.
We may not bring the felt boards back,
Uh-huh.
but you bet we're using those brass chalices that have been in the church for 150 years.
Yes.
They are literally from the 1800s, and we polish them up and use them.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think you can have an appreciation for where we've come from
Absolutely.
without, beating people up over it.
That
Exactly.
part.
Oh shoot, I was gonna say something. It's really good. I'm so sorry y'all aren't gonna hear
And
it.
I'm sure it's amazing.
Anything else from you, Virginia?
No, I'm just kind of frustrated with these two.
Yeah.
And, like, yes, you meant well, but you hurt a lot of people
Yeah.
and divided a lot of families doing
Ruined
it.
families.
Ruined. Yeah, death sentence to
Ruined.
them. So yikes.
Super yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do better next time.
Come on. People. I've heard people name their kids Ezra and Nehemiah. Now I'm like, were those good names? We'll see.
I mean, that can
And if you do have a kid that's Ezra or Nehemiah, I'm sure they're lovely.
or if you are, all are welcome.
That's right.
I mean, yeah. A lot of people name their kid Jude, and I love that name, but it's Judas. It's the same
that,
name.
yeah,
So, but it's also Jesus' brother. So,
that's true.
Redeemable.
That is true.
yeah. So,
Redeemable.
well, as we end this week and we head on into next week with two of the most interesting books in the Old Testament, in my humble opinion.
Honestly, I took a whole class on Job. I'm super excited.
I'm really excited for you to share some of that. I
Yeah.
have not done a deep dive on it, but
I'm putting in my notes to go through all my Job stuff.
yeah. So, but remember, these stories, the stories of the history of our faith, can be complicated. But there's one thing that's never complicated,
That's right.
and that's that Jesus loves you. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye, Ja.